My name is Annabelle Thompson, and I'm 28 years old. 4 weeks ago, my parents sold my grandmother's antique piano, the one she promised would be mine, and used the entire $95,000 to buy my sister a brand new Mercedes. They assumed my grandmother was too ill in hospice to ever find out. They assumed I was too passive to tell her. They were wrong. When I finally explained to my grandmother what they had done, she didn't cry. She didn't yell. She simply picked up her phone, dialed a single number, and spoke 7 words that would dismantle everything my parents believed they controlled. Before I explain what those 7 words were and what followed at my mother's 60th birthday party, take a moment to like and subscribe if you genuinely enjoy this story. Leave a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now let me take you back to where this began. The afternoon my grandmother was admitted to hospice. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, right after my final piano lesson of the day. Eleanor's had another heart attack, my father said. No greeting. No concern. She's stable, but they're moving her to hospice. Family meeting at the hospital in an hour. I dropped everything. When I arrived, my parents and my sister Megan were already grouped together in a corner of the waiting room, speaking quietly. My father, Richard Thompson, stood with his arms folded. My mother, Diane, clutched her designer handbag as if it were essential. Megan, 4 years younger and always favored, was scrolling on her phone, barely looking up. "Good, you're here," my father said. "We need to divide responsibilities." Not, "How are you?" Not, "This is hard." Just logistics. Someone needed to visit my grandmother daily. He explained that Diane and he had the business to manage, and Megan was in an important stage with Daniel's family. Daniel Harrison, her boyfriend of 8 months and the son of my father's most valuable business partner. He turned to me as if assigning a task. "You'll handle the visits. Your schedule is flexible. Teachers don't really work overtime." I wanted to explain that I taught music to 37 children every week, ran after-school programs, and that my time mattered. Instead, I said, "Of course, I want to be with her anyway." "Perfect," my father replied, already turning away. "Let us know if anything changes." As I walked down the hallway toward my grandmother's room, I heard my mother's voice, intended only for Megan. "At least she's useful for something." I didn't turn around, not because I didn't hear it, but because I was used to that kind of dismissal and no longer expected it to be acknowledged. My grandmother Eleanor's room smelled of lavender and old books, both by her insistence. "They want everything to smell like antiseptic," she told me on my first visit. I refuse. If I'm going to die, I'll be surrounded by things I love. She was 76, mentally sharp, and dying from congestive heart failure. Doctors gave her weeks, maybe a couple of months. I visited every day after school. We talked about music, about her years performing in concert halls across the Northeast, and about my students who couldn't read notes yet, but already felt rhythm instinctively. One evening, she reached for my hand. Her grip was weaker than I remembered, but her eyes were steady. "Annabelle, I need you to know something." "Anything, Grandma." "The Steinway," she said, pausing deliberately. "My mother's piano from 1892. I knew it well. I'd played my first scales on those keys at 7. That piano had been the emotional center of my childhood, the one place I felt seen. "It's yours," she said clearly. "I told Richard and Diane last month, in front of everyone. That piano belongs to you." I remembered that moment. My father tightening his jaw, my mother exchanging a look with Megan, my sister rolling her eyes and calling it sentimental clutter. "Grandma, you don't have to," I said. "I want to," she replied, squeezing my hand. "You're the only one who understands what it means. Promise you'll take care of it." I promised. She smiled in a way that suggested she knew more than I did. "Some things are worth more than money," she said, "and some people only learn that the hard way." 2 weeks later, everything shifted. Grandma asked me to bring old photographs from her house, pictures from her performing years that she wanted to see again. I still had a key, so I drove over after school on a rainy Thursday. The house was unnervingly quiet. I walked through the foyer, past the dining room, into the living room where the Steinway had stood for 3 decades. It was gone. I froze. In its place was a rectangular outline in the carpet, a mark of something removed abruptly after years of presence. My hands shook as I called my mother. "Where's Grandma's piano?" There was a pause. Your father handled it, she said casually. Adult matters, Anna. You don't need to worry. Handled it how? Where is it? I told you not to worry. She hung up. That evening, I went to my parents' house. My father opened the door holding a glass of scotch, visibly irritated. The piano, I said. What did you do? He didn't hesitate. Sold it. $95,000. Good price. My head spun. You sold it? Grandma said it was mine. Grandma's dying, he replied. She doesn't need a piano, and neither do you. I heard keys jingle behind him. Megan stepped into the hallway, smiling. New keys for a new car. You bought her a car? I asked flatly. With Grandma's piano? My father shrugged. Mercedes-Benz. Megan needs to make the right impression on the Harrisons. Appearances matter. That piano was promised to me. And what would you do with it? My mother asked, arms crossed. You teach children's music. You don't perform. You don't have space. Megan needed it for her future. Her future, I repeated. Megan waved her keys. Don't be jealous, Anna. It's not attractive. Maybe if you chose a better career, you'd have nice things too. I looked at them, the family structure where I was always secondary. Does Grandma know? Silence. Does she know you sold her piano? My mother's expression hardened. She's in hospice? She's on morphine? She doesn't need upsetting information. You mean you don't want her to know? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. If you tell her and it causes stress and something happens, that will be on you. Do you want to be responsible for killing your grandmother? The accusation lingered. I should have backed down. I usually did. But something had finally shifted. She has a right to know, I said. And I won't lie. I left before they could respond. I didn't sleep that night. My apartment felt smaller, the modest one-bedroom my parents mocked as evidence of poor choices. I sat on my second-hand couch, staring at a framed photo of Grandma Eleanor at her final concert, fingers poised above the keys, focused and confident. That same piano sold without hesitation. My mother's words echoed, "That will be on you." Was she right? Would telling the truth hurt my grandmother? Then I remembered what Grandma had taught me years ago. Truth can hurt, but lies always hurt more. They just take longer. I thought about every time I'd stayed silent to keep peace, every time I'd accepted less, every time I'd made myself smaller, and where had it led? If I stayed quiet now, I wasn't protecting anyone. I was enabling them. By 3 a.m., my decision was made. Grandma deserved the truth. She had a right to know that her son had taken from her, lied to her, and decided she was too fragile to matter anymore. And maybe, in the process, I deserved to stop apologizing for taking up space. I set my alarm for early morning. I would go to hospice before school. I would tell her everything. When I arrived, Grandma was awake, propped against her pillows, watching the sunrise through the window. You look like you didn't sleep, she said gently. I didn't. I pulled a chair closer and took her hand. Grandma, I need to tell you something, and it's going to hurt. Her eyes, still sharp despite everything, studied my face. Then tell me. So I did. I told her about the empty living room, the $95,000, the Mercedes-Benz registered in Megan's name, my father's casual dismissal, my mother's threat. I told her all of it, bracing myself for tears, shock, or the kind of reaction that might overwhelm what little strength she had left. Instead, Grandma Eleanor released a long, slow breath. Not a cry, not anger, just a sigh, the sound of someone who had expected this outcome. Grandma, I whispered. She looked at me, calm and almost resigned. I knew this might happen, sweetheart. You knew? I know my son, she said steadily. I've watched him become who he is for 40 years. I hoped he would change, but I also prepared for the chance that he wouldn't. My thoughts raced. Prepared how? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached toward her bedside table. Hand me my phone. I gave it to her, confused. She scrolled through her contacts with surprising ease, found a name and pressed call, putting it on speaker. After 3 rings, a man answered, his voice calm and measured. Eleanor, how are you feeling? I'm dying, Harold, but I'm clear-minded and it's time. A pause. I understand. When? Sunday. Diane's birthday party. At my house. Another pause. I'll prepare the documents. Thank you, old friend. She ended the call and looked at me with a small, knowing smile. Grandma, I said slowly, who is Harold? Harold Jennings, she replied. He's been my attorney for 30 years. He was your grandfather's closest friend. I stared at her. You have your own attorney? I have many things your father doesn't know about Annabelle, she said, her eyes bright despite her fatigue. Richard has always believed he understands everything. That assumption is his greatest flaw. I felt as though I was standing at the edge of something much larger than I could see. What's going to happen on Sunday at Mom's birthday party? Justice, she said, squeezing my hand. Delayed, perhaps, but justice all the same. I don't understand. You don't need to yet. She leaned back, suddenly looking more tired. I just need you to do one thing for me. Anything. Come to the party, dress well, and bring your patience. A faint smile crossed her face. The kind of patience I taught you when you were learning Chopin and wanted to throw the sheet music across the room. I almost laughed. That bad? Worse, she said softly. But necessary. Your parents need to learn that actions have consequences. And I've spent 5 years making sure that when this lesson arrived, it wouldn't be forgotten. 5 years. She had been planning for 5 years. Grandma, what did you do? She closed her eyes, exhaustion overtaking her. I protected you, sweetheart. The way I should have protected you long ago. I only regret that it took me so long. I stayed with her until she fell asleep, my thoughts racing. Harold Jennings, Sunday. My mother's birthday party at Grandma's house. Something was about to change. I didn't know how, but I could feel it. 2 days later, I was sitting in a small law office on the outskirts of Philadelphia. Harold Jennings was not what I expected. He was in his late 60s, with silver hair and gold-rimmed glasses. His movements were slow but deliberate. The office smelled of old leather and paper, shelves of legal books lining the walls. Annabelle Thompson, he said, shaking my hand. Your grandmother speaks of you often. It's good to finally meet you. Mr. Jennings. Harold, please. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Your grandmother asked me to clarify a few things before Sunday. I sat, my hands unsteady. Your grandmother is a remarkable woman, he said, and far more perceptive than her children believe. She's been observing, planning. Planning what? He folded his hands. Tell me, Annabelle, who do you think owns the house your parents live in? They do, I said. Grandma gave it to them after Grandpa died. His expression didn't change. Is that what they told you? That's what everyone says. Everyone is mistaken. He slid a folder across the desk. Your grandmother allowed Richard and Diane to live there rent-free, but she never transferred ownership. Not legally. Not ever. I stared at the document. The deed was clear, Eleanor Whitmore's name. No transfer, no changes. They've been living there for 10 years, I said slowly, thinking it was theirs. My head spun. Why let them believe that? Because she was watching, Harold said, waiting to see if her son would prove her wrong. Instead, he confirmed her concerns. That night, I returned to my apartment and began searching through a box Grandma had given me years earlier. Photos, letters, pressed flowers. I'd avoided it before. It felt too personal. Now I needed answers. Near the bottom, beneath faded concert programs, I found a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. My name was written on it in Grandma's neat handwriting. Beneath it, 6 words. For Annabelle, when you need to understand. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a photograph and a copy of a legal document. The header was partly obscured, but Grandma's signature was clear, dated 5 years earlier. Attached was a handwritten note. The house never left my hands, sweetheart. It was only borrowed, and some borrowers don't deserve the privilege. I read it 3 times. Then I understood. Sunday's party was being held at Grandma's house, the same house my parents treated as their own, the place where they hosted holidays, where they sold the piano as if it belonged to them. It never did. My father had built his sense of importance on something he didn't own. I thought of all the times he lectured me about assets and investments while standing in a home that wasn't his. The irony was hard to ignore. I put the letter back on my nightstand. Sunday was 3 days away. The night before the party, Grandma called. Her voice was weaker, each word costing effort, but her mind was clear. Annabelle, are you ready for tomorrow? I think so. I hesitated. Grandma, are you sure? It's Mom's birthday, in front of everyone. That's exactly why it has to be tomorrow, she said. Your father sold my piano in front of everyone, announced it like it was his choice. He didn't ask me. He didn't consider you. He believed I was too weak, and you were too quiet to matter. I closed my eyes. I remember. Then you understand why this lesson needs witnesses, she said. This isn't revenge. Revenge is hollow. This is about doing what's right and protecting you, especially after I'm gone." My throat tightened. "Grandma, I should have done something sooner. I watched how they treated you for years," she said. "I kept hoping Richard would change. That was my mistake. Love blinded me. It wasn't your fault. Perhaps not entirely, but I can still correct it." She paused. "I don't have much time left. Weeks, they say, but I think less. So I need to know. Do you trust me? Always. Then come tomorrow. Wear something that makes you feel strong. And remember, no matter what happens, you are not the villain in this story. You never were." We said goodnight. I held the phone to my chest long after the call ended. Tomorrow would change everything. Sunday arrived with pale winter light and crisp air that made everything feel sharper. Grandma's house, my parents' borrowed house, looked almost celebratory. A bright, happy 60th birthday banner stretched across the porch. Cars filled the driveway and lined the street. I parked at the far end and sat quietly for a moment. I'd chosen a navy blue dress, simple and clean, and pearl earrings Grandma had given me for my 21st birthday. My hair was pinned neatly back. Then I stepped out of the car. I stepped into the house, bracing myself for a battle I didn't yet understand. Inside, about 30 guests mingled. Aunts and uncles I only saw at holidays, longtime neighbors, and a handful of my father's business associates. I spotted Mr. Harrison near the fireplace, Daniel at his side, Megan draped on his arm. My eyes immediately went to the corner where the Steinway had stood for 30 years. It was empty. A large potted plant had been placed there, trying and failing to fill the void. It looked absurd, a leafy green apology for something that couldn't be forgiven. My mother stood near the dining table in a red designer dress, soaking up compliments like royalty. My father hovered, working the room with practiced charm. In the far corner, nearly invisible, sat Harold Jennings, his leather briefcase beside him. He caught my gaze and gave a subtle nod. I nodded back. Aunt Margaret, Grandma's younger sister, appeared beside me. "Anna, sweetheart, how is Eleanor really?" "Tired," I said honestly. "She's always been the smart one." Her eyes drifted to the empty corner. "I noticed the piano's gone. Richard said Eleanor wanted to sell it." I opened my mouth, but my father's voice cut through the chatter. "Everyone, may I have your attention, please?" He raised a crystal glass, commanding the room, as if he owned it, though I now knew he didn't. "Today, we celebrate 60 wonderful years of Diane Thompson." Applause. My mother beamed. "And I also want to share some exciting family news. As some of you know, our daughter Megan has been seeing Daniel Harrison, son of my dear friend and partner James." He gestured toward Daniel, who smiled politely. "And to celebrate her bright future, we have a special surprise." He led everyone outside. There it was, a gleaming silver Mercedes-Benz, a red bow on its hood. A gift. My father announced, made possible by Grandma Eleanor's generosity. She sold her antique piano to invest in her granddaughter's future. Megan squealed, hugged him, and posed for photos. I stood frozen. He was doing it again, rewriting the story, casting himself as hero while erasing Grandma's wishes. A woman nearby whispered to her husband, "Wasn't that piano supposed to go to the other granddaughter? The music teacher?" He shrugged. Aunt Margaret, pale, appeared beside me. "Anna, did Eleanor really agree to this?" Before I could answer, Megan called out with false sweetness, "Anna, come take a picture. Don't be jealous. I'm sure Grandma will leave you something too. Maybe her old sheet music." Laughter scattered. My hands shook. Tears blurred my vision. Then came the click of a briefcase opening. Guests moved inside, but Aunt Margaret blocked my father. "Richard," she said, her voice steady but hands trembling, "I need to ask you something." "Can it wait, Margaret?" "We're in the middle of." "Did you ask Eleanor before you sold that piano?" Her question hit like a stone in still water. Conversation stuttered to a halt. "Mother is in hospice," my father said smoothly. "She's not in a condition to make these decisions. We did what was best. I spoke with her this morning. She's clear-headed, Richard," Aunt Margaret countered, "completely lucid. And she told me, you never asked permission. You never even told her." More people were listening now. Mr. Harrison frowned. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. My mother stepped forward, face flushed. "Margaret, this is my birthday. Let's not make a scene." Aunt Margaret laughed, but there was no humor. "Diane, your husband sold Eleanor's most precious possession without her knowledge and used the money for a car. If anyone's making a scene, it's not me." The room fell silent. 30 sets of eyes darted between her and my parents. My father's composure cracked slightly. This is a family matter. It doesn't need to be discussed in public. Actually, a calm, firm voice said behind us, public is exactly where it should be discussed. I turned. Harold Jennings stood, briefcase open, folder in hand. He walked to the center of the room with quiet authority. Good afternoon. My name is Harold Jennings. I am Eleanor Whitmore's attorney. My father went pale. The silence was suffocating. Harold positioned himself near the empty corner where the piano had stood, deliberate in his choice. I apologize for interrupting the celebration, he said, his voice carrying across the room, but Eleanor Whitmore has asked me to address urgent matters regarding her estate. She wanted her family and close friends to hear this directly. My father found his voice first. My mother has an attorney? Since when? 30 years, Richard, Harold said politely but sharply. I also represent your father. You would know that if you ever asked. Gasps rippled through the room. My mother stepped forward. Eleanor is dying. She's not in her right mind. Whatever papers you have. Harold raised a hand, silencing her. I visited Eleanor this morning. Her nurse, Carol, can confirm she is fully competent and lucid. She dictated specific instructions for today's meeting. He opened the folder, removing a document. There seems to be confusion about property ownership. Let me clarify. He held up the paper. This is the deed to the house we are standing in. I watched my father's face drain. Notice the name Eleanor Whitmore, not Richard Thompson, not Diane Thompson. Harold paused. This house has never been transferred. It was never gifted. Your parents have lived here rent-free for 10 years thanks to Eleanor's generosity and nothing more. Whispers erupted. My father grabbed a chair for support. Megan stared, panic spreading. And that, Harold continued quietly, is just the beginning. He glanced around the room, sensing everyone's tension. Before I reveal more, let me ask, who do you think truly owns this house? My father's voice cracked. Impossible. Mother said the house was ours. She promised. Harold placed the deed on the dining table for everyone to see. She never promised ownership. Legally, there is a difference, Mr. Watt Thompson. Realization swept through the room. Mr. Harrison stepped back. A neighbor exchanged a knowing glance. For 10 years, Harold went on, you've enjoyed this property without paying rent, utilities, or taxes, all covered by Eleanor. You treated it as your own, even making modifications without permission. He looked at the modern light fixtures installed last year. Legally, you are tenants at will. The property owner has the right to terminate at any time. You can't be serious, my mother shrieked. We've lived here a decade. We invested in this house. Any improvements without written consent belong to Eleanor Whitmore, Harold said evenly. Megan grabbed Daniel's arm. This is insane. Dad, tell them it's a joke. My father couldn't speak, staring at the deed like a verdict. I should also mention, Harold added casually, Pennsylvania law takes property fraud seriously. Representing someone else's property as your own can have serious legal consequences. Mr. Harrison's expression shifted from confusion to calculation, viewing my father now as a liability. The empire he'd built on borrowed prestige was crumbling, and Harold still had more documents. He pulled out a second folder. Now we come to the matter of the trust. What trust? My father whispered. 5 years ago, Eleanor Whitmore established a separate trust, independent of the will shared with your family. It was created specifically to protect her most valuable assets in the event of, he paused deliberately, financial misconduct. Financial misconduct? My mother sputtered. We're her family. Family members can still commit misconduct, Mrs. Thompson, as recent events have shown. Harold pulled out a thick, crisp document. Under the terms of this trust, the following assets are irrevocably assigned to a single beneficiary. The house we are standing in, Eleanor's financial accounts, and all items of sentimental value, including the 1892 Steinway piano recently sold without authorization. He looked directly at me. The sole beneficiary is Annabelle Rose Thompson. The room fell silent. Megan screamed. What? This is fraud, my father shouted, pointing at me, face twisted with rage. Harold's tone froze the room. I advise you to choose your next words carefully. Everything stated here is witnessed by over 30 people. Aunt Margaret stepped to my side, squeezing my hand. Ella Lennar had planned this meticulously. Harold continued. She spent 5 years watching and waiting, hoping her son would prove her wrong. Instead, he sold her most treasured possession to buy a car for the granddaughter who rarely visits. Actions have consequences, Mr. Thompson. This is yours. My mother cried. Megan looked sick. I couldn't move or breathe, still processing what I just heard. Harold let the tension settle. Then he addressed the piano sale directly, producing another document. Since the Steinway was part of the trust and Annabelle is the designated beneficiary, the sale without Eleanor's consent constitutes unauthorized disposal of trust assets. What does that mean? Megan's voice was small. It means the $95,000 must be returned to the trust within 30 days. Failure to comply will result in civil litigation for misappropriation of trust property. Given the paper trail, the outcome would not be favorable for your family. My father laughed, hollow and desperate. We don't have $95,000. The money went to the car. Then you'll need to liquidate that asset, Harold said, nodding toward the Mercedes in the driveway, bow and all. The dealer may accept a return, though likely at a loss. Megan burst into tears. My car? You're taking my car? I'm not taking anything, Miss Thompson, Harold said. I'm simply explaining the legal consequences of your family's decisions. Daniel had stepped away, leaving Megan without support, and neither he nor his father looked sympathetic. Harold added, Eleanor also requested that your living arrangement here be formally restructured. You may stay temporarily, but a proper lease agreement will be required. A lease? My mother whispered. In the house we've lived in for 10 years? In the house you never owned, Harold corrected gently. The room went deathly silent. All eyes were on me. My father turned slowly, fury and betrayal on his face. You did this. You poisoned her against us. No, Dad, I said, steadier than I expected. Grandma made these decisions 5 years ago. I only found out this week. Liar, my mother spat. You've always been jealous of Megan. This is revenge. Revenge? I felt a cold resolve form inside me. I hadn't sold Grandma's piano, hadn't spent the money on myself, hadn't lied. I stepped forward. I'm not the one who said, at least she's useful for something, when I visited Grandma every day. I'm not the one who hung up when I asked questions. I'm not the one who threatened me, saying I'd be responsible if Grandma were harmed. Gasps rippled through the room. Aunt Margaret's hand tightened on mine. For 28 years, I'd been invisible, shrinking myself to make others comfortable. But Grandma taught me something different. Loving yourself means standing up for what's right, even if it costs everything. I'm not apologizing anymore, I said. I'm not staying silent. I'm done pretending everything is fine when it isn't. The room remained still. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Harold pulled me aside. Annabelle, we need to discuss next steps. I nodded, still feeling surreal. Legally, you have several options, he whispered. You could demand immediate eviction. Your grandmother would support any decision. I looked at my parents. Dad collapsed in a chair, head in hands, Mom frozen by the window, mascara streaked, Megan likely outside mourning the Mercedes. Part of me wanted revenge, but that wasn't who I wanted to be. I don't want to evict them immediately, I said. Are you certain? Harold asked. Yes. Here's what I want. The $95,000 returned within 90 days, not 30. They can stay temporarily with a formal lease at minimal rent. After Grandma passes, they have 12 months to move. Harold studied me, then nodded. Your grandmother said you'd respond this way. She's very proud. I know, I whispered, voice cracking. The agreement was drafted on the dining room table, witnessed by Aunt Margaret and 2 guests. My father signed without looking. My mother's hand shook as she held the pen. Silence dominated the room. Mr. Harrison and Daniel left without saying goodbye. Megan stayed outside, still crying. The cake sat untouched. The banner drooped. Aunt Margaret hugged me. You did the right thing, sweetheart. Eleanor would be proud. She is, I said softly. I talked to her this morning. My phone buzzed. A video call from Grandma's hospice. I answered, standing in the empty corner where the piano had been. Her face appeared, pale but serene. Nurse Carol smiled behind her. My brave girl, Grandma said softly. How do you feel? Terrified, I admitted, and relieved, sad, all at once. That's courage, she said, never comfortable. I didn't throw them out, I gave them time. I know. Harold texted later, you're a better person than they deserve, but that's why I chose you. I pressed my hand to the screen. Thank you, Grandma, for everything, for protecting me. Don't thank me, she said, smiling faintly. Just live well, play music, be happy. I will, I said. I know you will, she whispered, closing her eyes. Many may wonder, did your parents change? The answer is complicated. Not every story has a perfect ending, but every story has a lesson. The first week after the party was chaos. Word spread quickly. Business partners stopped meetings, friends stopped returning calls. Mr. Taft Harrison formally withdrew from a joint venture worth over $200,000. Megan had to return the Mercedes. The dealer only offered $80,000. She screamed for 20 minutes before signing. 3 days later, Daniel broke up with Megan via text. My family thinks it's best if we take some time apart. Translation: they wanted nothing to do with the Thompson family drama. My sister, once the golden child, suddenly felt ordinary. No car, no wealthy boyfriend, no special status. She had to borrow my mother's old Honda for job interviews. I didn't gloat. I didn't reach out. I simply went on with my life, teaching piano, visiting grandma every evening. Still, I won't lie. There was a quiet satisfaction in watching the facades crumble. My father had spent years defining success by appearances: the house, the car, the right connections. Now he was learning none of it was real. Everything he built his identity on was borrowed, and borrowed things must be returned. 3 weeks after the birthday party, the hospice called me at 6 a.m. "You should come now," the nurse said gently. "She's asking for you." I drove faster than I should have, heart pounding. Grandma's room was quiet when I arrived. Morning light filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across her bed. Her breathing was shallow, her face thin, but her eyes were open. She smiled. "My Annabelle," she whispered. "Come sit with me." I took her fragile hand, like holding a bird. "I have something to tell you," she said slowly. "Something I should have said years ago." "What is it, Grandma?" "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" "For not acting sooner." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I watched how they treated you. I kept hoping Richard would change. Diane would see your value. I made excuses because I didn't want to believe my own son could be." "It's not your fault," I said, tears falling. "Maybe not entirely," she whispered, "but I could have done more. I should have protected you earlier, instead of waiting until I was dying." She squeezed my hand weakly. "You deserved better." "You gave me everything that mattered," I said fiercely. "Music, love, the knowledge that I was worth something. That's more than they ever gave me." She smiled, for a moment strong and radiant, just like I remembered. "I'm so proud of you, Annabelle. You have a good heart, but you finally learned to guard it. You taught me that." Then I did something right. Her eyes fluttered closed. "I'm tired now, sweetheart. Stay with me always." Grandma Eleanor passed away that evening, peacefully with my hand in hers. Her funeral, 5 days later at the small church she attended for 50 years, was simple by her wishes. No elaborate flowers, no ostentation, just music, memories, and those who truly loved her. I played piano. Not the Steinway, gone long ago, but the church's modest upright. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the first piece she ever taught me. The church was half full. Aunt Margaret sat in the front row, tissues in hand. Grandma's friends from her performing days filled the pews, white-haired women remembering Eleanor Whitmore as a name that meant something in classical music. My parents sat in the back. They didn't approach me before, during, or after the service. My mother's sunglasses hid her eyes. My father stared straight ahead. Megan wasn't there, too emotionally fragile. I delivered the eulogy, speaking of Grandma's music, wisdom, and quiet strength. How she taught me love wasn't about grand gestures. It was showing up day after day, seeing someone for who they truly were. I didn't mention the family drama. This was her day. Afterward, my father hesitated to approach, stopped, then my mother pulled him away. Maybe he wanted to apologize. Maybe not. I was at peace knowing some apologies never come, and some aren't needed anymore. 6 months later, I moved into Grandma's house. It felt strange at first, walking through rooms filled with her belongings, sleeping in the guest room I'd known since childhood. Slowly, it became home. I used part of the returned money to buy a new piano, not a Steinway, but a Yamaha Grand, filling the corner where hers had stood. Different but meaningful. A new beginning. I resumed teaching private lessons. My first student was Aunt Margaret's granddaughter, Sophie, 8 years old, bright-eyed with the same impatient energy I had at her age. When she played her first complete scale, I cried. My parents moved out 2 months after Grandma's death. not waiting the full 12 months. They bought a small condo across town. My father's business shrank to half its former size. My mother joined a different social circle, one unaware of their past. We didn't speak, not out of anger, but distance. Some gaps are too wide to bridge. I wasn't bitter. Bitterness is exhausting. I had a life to build. In the evenings, I played the piano until the stars appeared. Sometimes Chopin, sometimes Bach, sometimes improvisations that went nowhere and everywhere. Grandma's presence lingered, in the scent of lavender from her garden, in the creak of the floorboards, in the light at sunset. She was gone, but everywhere. And I was finally free. 8 months later, my phone rang. Megan. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Anna, she said, her voice smaller, uncertain. Megan. Silence stretched across decades of sisterhood reduced to awkward pauses. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted to say something. Okay. I've been thinking about everything. How I acted, how angry I was at you, at Grandma, at everyone. I thought you'd stolen from me. Now I'm working entry-level at a marketing firm. I ride the bus. I've started therapy. My therapist says I have a lot to unpack about Mom, Dad, and how I thought I deserved everything without earning it. Her laugh was hollow. Being the favorite isn't a gift. It's a trap. I'm glad you're working through it, I said. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Her voice cracked. I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know I understand why you did what you did, why Grandma did what she did. She loved you too. She just couldn't reward behavior that hurt others. I know, I said. We sat in silence. I added, if you ever want to talk, I'll listen, but trust takes time. I understand. Good. We hung up without a goodbye, not coldness, but uncertainty. Some doors open slowly, but they can still open. It's spring now, a year since Grandma entered hospice. I sit at my piano, windows open, the scent of jasmine and cut grass carried on the breeze. I play her favorite nocturne, the one she performed at her final concert 20 years ago. The notes drift through the house, filling the silence with something soft. I think about everything. The betrayal, the reveal, the boundaries I never thought I could set. I think about Grandma, her strength, patience, quiet determination. I think about my parents in their condo, Megan on the bus, learning to earn her way. I don't hate them. Hate takes too much energy. I just don't need them anymore. That's a freedom I never expected. The nocturne ends. The final notes fade. I look at Grandma's photograph, her at 60, radiant fingers poised over the Steinway. I whisper, I'm doing okay, Grandma. More than okay. I close the piano lid, walk to the window. Stars pierce the dark sky. I don't have the original piano. I don't have the family I thought I had. But I have myself. Boundaries. A life built on truth. That's Grandma's real inheritance, and that's my story. If this resonated with you, if you've ever had to stand up for yourself in a family that made you feel invisible, know you're not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It honors your worth. Hit like if this story mattered. Subscribe for more, and check the description for videos I think you'll love.